Sorry for the late start. We had a little glitch there. We are continuing to meet by Zoom. That could change very soon. We're meeting by Zoom due to COVID restrictions, but hopefully that this could be the last meeting we have to meet by Zoom. Let us cross our fingers. So we have I guess let's go ahead and do a roll call. Philip
I'm here. Thank you.
Sirianni?
Yep.
Yes. Mike Drake?
I'm here.
And Thomas Markle.
Me.
Wonderful. So this was my first draft agenda. So I would request we have a motion for approval of the agenda and any related discussion. If you want any changes? So, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Yep. I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Are we good to go? Are we happy with this? It sounds like all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yes?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I did want to, oh, okay. I did want to start off with a discussion of the ordinance creating this, just to make sure we're all on the same page. And I think we are, just based on what I've seen everybody sees us doing, the Thomas's survey, the list of all the priorities. And Thomas, thank you so much for putting all that all together. That I know that probably took some time and some effort, and it is going to help us immensely tonight, I believe. So is everybody pretty clear on what our purpose is, why we exist? Are there any questions? Does anybody want to discuss this? Or do y'all think you're pretty clear on it?
One question I had was that my reading of the ordinance says that we're mostly to make advisory comments based on engineering reports and advisory comments. The question that I struggle with was how much basic exploration and engineering do we want to do? I think I made a comment that, we're an advisory committee, not an engineering company. And you have 3 engineer minds on your board, and we kind of tend to want to get out in the weeds sometimes. So the question, I guess, is how far do we go on the engineering side? I'm a little unclear on that.
That's a good question. And Corinne, you might want to help, and Travis, you might want to help. I think your knowledge is going to be really helpful in this. You understand how these plants work, or at least have a basic idea of how they work, a basic knowledge of how they work. So you all would be able to spot problems, understand the problems, understand what might need to be done to fix problems, to help the Public Works Committee, to help the board understand and move forward with I don't know, I guess following what is in our purpose of the committee. So I think your knowledge is invaluable. Now, exactly how we're going to use that, I myself am not 100% clear. So I don't know if Corinne or Travis would have any comments on that.
I got a comment if I can make it. This is Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I think that our engineering background, I think one of the things I think this group is supposed to do is to suggest studies that we think the board should approve of doing, because of, if we studied this, if we got a study on this subject, it would alleviate this problem or would help the board decide what to do with the problem. Not that we would be doing the study, we're just suggesting our background is saying we believe a study like this would help you with this particular problem you're having. That's one of the things I thought we should probably do, and I'll back off the microphone.
Amy, if I'm right.
Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. I think, I mean, basically the language of the ordinance is pretty specific as far as, our position being advisory, but I think that perhaps the intent is to be to interpret, basically, because I know that there aren't many, as Philip puts it, engineering minds. I'll say analytic. We have some extremely high quality folks on the town board, but their time is very limited. Their experience is not technically or not very technical in this regard, and so I think that taking Philip and Mike's knowledge and experience and applying it towards the problems that we're facing, the engineering studies, as well as all the other, background studies and contracts. And, we have a whole lot of documents that we're going to have to go through here. But I think that basically if we could just parse that down, interpret it for a more broad audience and put it in more simple language and kind of double check, just kind of give it the hairy eyeball, as they say, and then present that to the board. I think that we would probably fulfill the intent of this this committee.
Yeah, I think that's good. One of the things I've been drilling down through the documents, and one of the interesting things is that the assumption has been that there either has not been very good engineering or what's been there has been misinterpreted. But and I don't know how Michael and the rest feel, but I found an awful lot of terrific information in some of the older studies that were done back 2010, 2011. And a lot of the issues I think that we're looking at now have been known for a very long time. So, we're looking at 2 engineering studies coming up. As I pointed out in one of my letters, I'm a big fan of GIS and geography. But the 2 engineering studies coming up are basically a mapping study and basically an infrastructure study of the town. So, I think we're going to have to drill pretty hard into the raw water data and try and figure out, what our supply side chain looks like. I think our operations are, and we can talk about this later, in pretty good shape. But I guess my point is there's good information out there. I think we're going to need to spend quite a bit of time up on the mountain looking around and seeing what kind of raw water sources we have before we can make any really ideas. So anyway, there we go.
And Corinne?
I
Thank you. Good observations.
what I was going to say is just that I believe that the ordinance is drafted so that it gives there's some leeway in there for review and input and analysis of other things as we go on. But the major points that were the part of conversation when the board was having this conversation with the public about creating the advisory committee was one, to evaluate and give some feedback on the upcoming studies, the infrastructure analysis and the mapping, the GIS mapping. And 2 was to be an advisory committee that could have more direct and regular contact and communication with the water companies that are existing, so that they had a more open platform that they could speak and be heard and feel like their needs and opinions were being heard and correctly relayed back to the board.
Tammy, you're muted. Tammy,
I'm sorry. If I leave it over there, it mutes me again. So it seems to me like we do have a pretty good grasp of what our purpose is and what where we need to go, and just based on all of the topics, the numerous points received, the responses to the survey. So I feel comfortable myself moving forward with, let's go ahead and start the discussion about what our priorities are. Let's discuss those priorities that we've listed, that Thomas has distilled down into a couple of nice short lists, and you know, perhaps we can just move ahead and start talking about them if you guys are game. Are we good to do that?
Yeah, I'm game.
Any comments? No. All right, then let's move on to the next topic of discussion. Okay, all right.
Tammy, I'm sorry.
And Thomas, I apologize. I missed the approval of the minutes. Did you ever send those out?
No, Corinne did them from last time. I wasn't the
did,
secretary.
and
What's wrong?
I apologize, those didn't get sent out earlier. But with the creation of the agenda and it just, we didn't quite work out all those
Right, I'm
details
sorry.
this time, so I'll have to provide them to you for your next meeting. But Tammy, I did want to let you know that you have a hand up in the audience.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that. How do I get there? Oh, so there we go. I'll go ahead and take that, but I would like to save a lot of the discussion for the public to the end of the topic. So, but I guess we're at the end of this first topic. So who's got their hand up? Oh, I see it. So do I unmute you, or how does this work? So Dave,
I can, yeah.
would you like to speak?
Sure.
Dave?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Can
point
you
out
hear
as a trustee
Dave
that,
Knudsen, can you hear me?
yeah.
Do you have to do that?
Tammy, I think you have a delay. There's a little bit of, you're a little bit static and there's a little bit of a
You're
delay.
good.
Well, this is awkward.
Uh,
Yeah, it is.
The main thing for me as a trustee was seeing people that are willing to do a much deeper dive than what we have time for on the board to really look at this, and the technical nature of our appointments, I think, tells you the kind of expertise we really need. So as a trustee, I don't think many of us have time to do the kind of dive into the engineering reports, into the past reports that we would hope that this board would do. So that's what I'm looking for, and really strong recommendations about how do we move forward? What should staffing look like? What should, our next interventions, our infrastructure, those kind of things. And I'd really like people that can really get into the weeds in it, actually. That would help us a lot. So thanks for letting me talk.
Well, I have a question for Dave. I don't know you, but I'm an outsider. I don't live in the town of Paonia, but I've had, I would say, 15 people talk to me in the grocery store and various places, and they all want to know the same question: when are we going to lift the moratorium?
Right.
And the issue that I foresee is that it may take quite a while to solve that problem. So the question is whether that's going to work. Or the other problem that I foresee is that part of the ordinance mandated that this committee essentially involve the public in every meeting. Now, if you've ever worked with engineers, we change our minds sometimes 3 times a day. So something that we might recommend or talk about at one of these meetings, by the time the next meeting rolls around, is not so. But by that time, it's on social media. Everything's all over the place. I mean, look at what's happened to the lead and copper thing. It's insane. So one of the issues I was going to bring up is whether this committee, under the rules, could have some working sessions where possibly the public is not involved, and us engineers can have frank discussions and roll in the weeds and do what we do. But and that's how you're going to get to answers. So there's a question about that in my mind.
Thomas?
Yeah, I'm not 100% on the legal background of it, Phil, but it is my understanding that because we are not elected representatives of the town, you and I and Mike and Corinne and Travis, for that matter, can get together. The only laws in place are for actual elected representatives. So actually, I guess our whole board could have a private meeting and still be within the sunshine laws, I think. And then to go on, I guess to get on track with the agenda regarding priorities, if I may, the kind of the background, Tammy's referencing a couple things that happened actually over email that the public and everybody's not quite caught up on right just yet, but there have been several topics thrown around in last month's discussion, in email and phone or other conversations that the group has had here. And I took the liberty of collecting those discussions and distilling them into about 20 some topics. So we started a list, I guess. I started a list of, I'm not going to read all of them, but like water company agreements, for example, raw water management, tap moratoriums, fill stations, planned growth, production management, climate change, billing, pipeline integrity, forthcoming studies, special district, outside sales, etc. And I just took all those things and put them into a grid and figured out which ones depend on the other ones. And the ones that are most dependent, I'm sorry, least dependent, that are most independent, most impactful on all those other topics, I scored, gave them a 0 to 3, and picked determined the most impactful topics using that system. And then I sent all of these topics out to our committee members as well in an informal survey, and I can share that if you guys would like to with the public. I don't know, Tammy, if you think that's a good idea, or everybody else, but just ask them to rate these topics as well, each individual 0 through 3. And actually we came out with a really good, strong correlation between the two, the most influential topics and the most popular topics by votes received. And we ended up with 9, I think it was, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yeah. 9 topics that were above average in the votes received and above average in impact. So those topics in no particular order are planned growth, raw water management, demand management, previous studies, data collection, billing and financial, forthcoming studies, and grants and loans. And I would also add that tap moratoriums received the highest votes. That was by far the highest, most important topic according to this board. So I think that if we could maybe just go in order of those 9 topics and discuss who might want to work on those, whether we think they're worth our time, and who on the board might be willing to put their energy and time into dealing with these topics as a priority. So I'm trying to stay organized here, but the number 1 is tap moratoriums, and Phil already mentioned it in his last comment. So I think that all of us found it to be a priority. And if,
Hey, Thomas, can we hold off for just a second?
Yep.
Corinne has something she wants to say, and she
I'm sorry, I
has not
didn't have
been able to-
my video on. Sorry.
That's no problem. I just want to give, she's, she knows a lot.
Thank you. The only thing I wanted to respectfully add before we started assigning tasks was that I believe the expectation was that once you finalized the list of priorities that the advisory board had, you were going to put them in the order of priority for the advisory group, and that was going to go before the board at the next meeting, so that the board could would be the ones that said, yes, that's the direction we buy into, that order, that's where we want you to focus, or if there was something else that the board of trustees may have found to be more of a priority above one or the other item.
Well, I have one comment. You can't answer the first question, which is releasing the moratorium, until you answer the next 8 that are below it. Because the problem is that we need to know what our raw water supply looks like. And I've been in that venue for a while, and it's very complicated up there. I think I pointed out that Michael did a little math on our water numbers up there, but my assessment is that we don't have 9.9 feet. We have that legally, but we probably only have half that amount of raw water. So the conditions of growth and future expansion are going to depend on whether we have enough raw water to satisfy the taps that are already purchased but unused, which that is a huge number, by the way. I don't personally would feel uncomfortable taking on how do we get rid of the moratorium without answering the rest of the science questions.
Well, if I may, saying the tap moratorium is #1 doesn't mean it's the first thing we get done. It would mean it's the most important thing on our list, if that is what this group decides. We know we need more information, but we would start with what we've already got. Whoever is assigned to that, or all of us, however this works, like Thomas said, maybe ask people who want to work on certain things, start working on them. It doesn't mean it's the first thing we're going to do. It would mean it's the most important thing we see getting done. And all of these are important. So I think before we decide who wants to do what or who can do what, that we should decide, is this list really in order of our, in the order that we see in importance? And it sounds like we're about there, but like I said, it doesn't mean that we're going to do that first. We're going to get that done, because it might take a lot of analyzing of data. It might take visits to the plants. We don't know, but I think as Corinne said, the board would like to know what our priorities are. I think even before we start saying who's going to work on them. So is anybody in disagreement with that, or any comments on that?
I got a comment. If now is a good time.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
I think we do need to go to the town council and talk with them about our priorities that we see, just like Corinne said. I think we actually need to do that before we start doing anything. But I know that the town council is very interested in reducing or opening the moratorium for some taps. But I have a whole series of questions, and what Phil said is absolutely correct. But in very simple terms, adding new taps, and I sent a copy of this to Tammy. She may have not seen it. and trying to figure out what you got to do to add new taps is just, I already don't have very much hair and I'm losing it. But in simple terms, you have to take all the operational taps that we have, the potential taps that aren't in operation, but they could come on at any time. How many taps does the town council want to have the ability to issue? We got to put a limit on it, or we can't tell you whether or not you can do it. And then we have to come up with a margin of safety for situations, to avoid situations like February 2019. And then all of that has to equal what the lowest flow in any given month is, because from Stone Mesa's attitude, their summer flow is at 100% and their winter flow is 10% of that. So all of the decisions have to be made on the lowest flow rate. And we got to figure out what that is. We being the royal we, not the committee. So I think we do need to come up with some idea as to what we think is important, but keeping in mind what it is we're supposed to do and what it is that the town council thinks is important. And I would say from the conversations I've heard, what's most important to them is to get in some number of taps that they think they could do and the system won't blow up again. And again, the royal we, the committee and the town need to talk about this, because we're going to have some agreements before we can go, the advisory group can go off and start studying stuff, because we need to be studying, digging data out and everything else, like Phil was saying, but it needs to be the data that will help answer the first question the town council wants answered. I'm getting off my soapbox now.
I did get your write-up, and I like that you sort of come up with almost a plan to do this. Not sure what I want to say here. I liked Thomas's idea about going through these and seeing if they are the in the order that we want. And Thomas, do you want to say something?
Yes, actually, I'd like to make a motion just so we can have a direction of discussion here. I'd like to make a motion that we issue a list of priorities to the town board that coincides with the results of the survey that was completed by the members of this board. And I'll just read them out here in order of votes received. Number one, and this is not order of timing, but rather order of importance. Number one, tap moratoriums and limits. Number two, raw water management. Number three, data collection. Number four, forthcoming studies. Number five, grants and loans. Number six, water company agreements. Number seven, previous studies. Number eight, billing and fees. Number nine, demand management. And number 10, planned growth. And those coincide with the emails that the members have received, or the email that members received from me. If anybody wants me to read them again in order, so we can discuss them and rearrange them or remove them or add to them, please let me know.
And do we have a second on that?
Mike seconds it.
Okay. So,
Well, wait,
yeah,
wait.
let's just,
There has to be discussion
that?
on the motion. There's got to be discussion on the motion.
that's what I'm just saying.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
let's have
Pardon
some
me.
discussion.
Pardon me.
So let's have some discussion. And Thomas, let me make sure I understand your motion. I believe you said that you you would like this committee to issue a list of priorities to the board that coincides with the votes received from the comments and the votes received, or was it just the votes received in the survey?
Just the votes. I think the numbers indicate what's most important to us.
A question, does this correlate with the engineering input as well? The members of the committee? Is this list just popular vote, or did you correlate our visions?
The only input that I have considered listing is the results of the survey, and the respondents were Tammy, Philip, Mike, and myself. I haven't adjusted or ordered or added, and these categories are very broad. They were intentionally, I kind of did that. So like Mike was just talking about the number of taps that might be issued, or the number of taps that town would like to see, and I think that kind of falls under planned growth as a topic. So, we can kind of just as a general, in the initial stages here, I don't think that it would help us to get very specific. I think we want to stay general, and if we can include as much as possible initially, and then kind of exclude things as we move along.
Madam Chair, I assume we're in the discussion stage, or are we?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay.
Yes.
There's one thing that's desperately missing here, and that's the analysis of operations. And that means operations and management of the treatment plant. That's an area that I am very interested in and have some skills in. And I believe that the operations should be either following raw water, or what was the next one?
Data collection.
Demand management. I think operations should be on either side of demand management. It's that important. I'd like to make one other comment. The February 19th accident that happened was what we call a black swan event or a Six Sigma event. It was something that in some cases could not be predicted. In many cases, it was not particularly the result of some aberrant management strategy. But in engineering, these things happen. February 19th, it was just a wake-up call for us to look at how things work by and large. So my personal view is that, and we can talk about this later, but there was some operations issues that were not particularly the result of the ORC. There was a lot of, this thing's been simmering for years. So long story short, I recommend, or I would make an amendment to add operations, and by operations, I mean water treatment plant, distribution system to the town limits.
I'm sorry, but could you say it again? You kind of got blurry there.
Yeah, I would add an amendment to put the study of operations, I guess, water treatment plant, water treatment operations, somewhere either as item number 4 or possibly number 6. I don't really care, but we need to look at it.
So what your amendment is to put an system operation study on the list somewhere. Yeah. You're not really particular about where it is. We'll just say, just put it on the list at this point, perhaps.
I think it should be somewhere between 1, 2, 3. It should be 4 or 5 on the list. It's that important.
Do you want to pick a number?
Let's see. We got raw water as number 3. We got demand management. I would put it after demand management.
I have demand management at the bottom, just above planned growth. So
yeah, I guess I wrote it.
So it would be between forthcoming studies and grants and loans?
No, it would be. Oh, I guess I got the list screwed up. So we got tap moratorium, planned growth, raw water, demand management. Is that right? Number 4.
No, it was tap moratoriums and tap limits, raw water management, data collection. Actually, Thomas sent this. I don't know if you sent this to everybody. I think you did. Sent it on Sunday. So yeah, again, tap moratoriums, raw water management, data collection, forthcoming studies, grants and loans, water company agreements, previous studies, billing and fees, demand management, and planned growth. So you would be looking at somewhere around between forthcoming studies and grants and loans, or perhaps between data collection and forthcoming studies.
Yeah, I think that's a good place for it.
So we put it as number 4.
I would. And I'd be
Okay.
happy to take that piece on.
Okay, very good. So we have an amendment to put an water operation study on the list as the number 4 priority. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
And this, I'm sorry, thank you. A
Second.
second on from Thomas. This is an amendment to the original amendment. Okay. And I would like to say real quick, I had noticed too that was not on there, Philip, and that was something I wanted to bring up too. I like where it's sitting, kind of in the middle there. And if you are willing to take that on, I just think that would be a great project for you, because I know you are, you really want to get into.
I got 5 or 6 of those right now.
So any other discussion, any other comments on this? And again, we are talking about the amendment to the original motion. Any comments from the public?
Okay, Mike would like,
Okay.
I'll be the public for this time.
Okay.
I don't
Go
think
ahead,
we need to
Mike.
worry that much about the order right now, because I think the town council is going to tell us what they think is most important, and that will probably change our order. So, and like Phil was saying, I just totally agree. A lot of these things that we've kind of separated out, what we've got to do an entire systems analysis, and all of these things are really parts that go into the total system analysis that needs to be done to truly answer all the questions.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. I think that, and that was really the difficulty in trying to sort it all out, was the interconnectedness of everything. And I actually tried to do a graph, like a visual graph of it, and there was a nest of all these confounding factors. So I think that this group probably realizes the depth of what we're up against. My intent with this motion and ordering this list is to kind of highlight the portions of what we're going to be working on that should receive most of our work towards interpretation for the board. And I think that it will probably reflect, it's based on what we think, the four of us think. And I think that the board will appreciate any attempt that we make to try and reduce the complexity of what we're presenting to them, and say, okay, we understand that tap moratoriums are very important to us and to the public, to the board. And so as we discuss the work that we do, that should be something that touches on all those other points. And so I think that it's really tricky to say this is a priority, because it can be taken, could be say it's an urgent, is it an urgent problem? Is it an emergent problem? But I think that really what it means is that it's something that's on our minds, and that we need to discuss and interpret for others.
Corinne? You're muted. You're muted. Ah.
Got it. Yeah, sorry about that. I would be remiss if I didn't make a clarification that the Advisory Water Committee is a board of 5. Travis is an appointed member and he didn't receive any of these documents that you're talking about. So he's not had no ability to look at them, provide any input or any evaluation of that. So I just want to bring that up
Okay.
right at the beginning so we don't get too far down and forget that it is essential that he participates.
Sure.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
take some responsibility for that. I've been sending Travis anything I send out, but yeah, duly noted.
I made a point to include Travis and you, Corinne, on all of my emails.
I seem not to
and
have one from Sunday. I apologize. I'm not sure where it ended up.
That's okay. I can resend them, but
Thank
yeah, I didn't receive a response on the surveys from, or really any responses from you guys at all in our correspondence. So I assumed that you're preferred to be hands off, but if it makes sense to actually double check this. Yeah, Travis is on that.
And I do prefer to be hands off and ultimately don't think that I'll even need to necessarily be in attendance. I just
Okay.
was trying to be here in the beginning stages just to help out if I could as we work through any of this stuff. But really it's
Okay.
going to be an either or with Travis and I, but primarily Travis will be the one that is attending.
Okay. Yeah, these were
Corinne,
sent to
I have a
T.
question.
Loberg at Town of Paonia. So
Okay.
Question for Corinne. If we want to have private conversations by email among ourselves, and if we send, Travis works for the town, you work for the town, so you're subject to the Open Rules Committee. So if we want to have a conversation among ourselves and would like to include Travis, are those emails subject to call?
We're going to need to double check that with Travis because I believe with the creation of an advisory committee, even though that I'm sorry, we'll need to check with our town attorney. I want to confirm that.
That's very important.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, real quick, Corinne, Travis was not included on the summary email that I sent on Saturday. So I'll send that out. But at that point, if there was no further input from anybody.
Tammy, was that the one that you sent me on Saturday?
I can't remember what I sent on Saturday. Let's see. Inbox Saturday. I don't see that I sent anything out on Saturday, but that doesn't mean I didn't. Hold on a second. Saturday. I don't show that I sent anything else out on Saturday, so I'm not sure.
Well, apologies. I didn't mean to derail. I can tell you, the committee that I give a lot of credit because in the couple of weeks since you met, you guys have pumped out a lot of information and a very long and detailed emails. And you're right. I haven't responded to a lot of it because I've been letting you guys work through your part without my input. But
Okay, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Mike.
And this is a Tammy question and a Corinne question. And I think it comes back to something that maybe Thomas was talking about. But would it be acceptable if Thomas, Phil, and I discussed some of the engineering things that we want to look at, and for us all to get on the same page before we bring it to the rest of the committee? That's my question. Is that legal, and would that maybe make things go smoother when we all get on this meeting?
Public TV.
Based on my knowledge of the open meetings laws, I can't see anything wrong with it. But like Corinne said, maybe we need to talk to Bo, but I don't see any problem with that. All you're doing, it's like having a committee meeting within the committee to say, hey, this is what we want to bring to the committee. I mean, I don't see any problem with it legally. you're not making any decisions. You're not, well, the big thing is you're not making any decisions. My guess is you're just talking engineering. You're not talking anything that the public would need to hear until it's all ready. Kind of like an unpublished document isn't public until it's published, until it's before the board. So I see no problem with it, but I will defer to Corinne.
I think it's definitely a question we need to bring to the town attorney and get some clarification on before the next meeting.
Well, I've read those open meetings laws over and over again, and nothing comes to mind that says they can't do it. But so I'll be interested to hear what Bo has to say.
Agreed. And you have hands in your audience, Tammy, when you're ready.
Really? Let's see. So Dave and then Suzanne.
I think Suzanne was ahead of me.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Oh,
I just want to thank.
All right, Suzanne, go ahead.
Hi, this is Suzanne Watson, and I want to thank you guys for volunteering to do this work. It's really awesome, and it's really important, and it's really timely. Oh, sorry. It's really timely because the town is doing a comprehensive plan, updating their comprehensive plan, and in Colorado State Statute 31-23-206, 1D, it speaks to the adequate water supply component in local planning. And it's somewhat general, but this information that you're working on and helping the board move forward with is really important for this really important document that they're going to be working on this year. So I just want to thank you because it's going to make this document so much more meaningful and helpful to the whole community. And as far as open meetings, you're not elected officials, and some of you don't even live in town, so I don't think the same laws as applies to the elected town officials would apply to you. And if it's a work product that you're working on, you don't have to have all of that made public. But I find it interesting to be able to listen, not to comment to you, but if I have questions to the board, it's kind of interesting to hear. And I don't know if I would agree that Facebook is an appropriate place for the, if community has concerns, they need to go to the board. Facebook is a little bizarre. But thank you. And that's all I needed to say.
Okay, and then Dave, and then if we could get back to the task at hand, to the original motion.
Well, Suzanne already mentioned the work product part of it, but I'd look to Bo to give you guys good guidance on this, because I know the importance of being able to collaborate with each other in private without a lot of eyes on it, and to be able to really hash it out among yourselves. And I know that's a valuable process. I just want to caution that when it comes to your full committee meetings, I think we made a commitment on the board that these would be open to the public. So that's the only thing I wanted to add. Thank you.
I agree 100%. And, even in our emails, I think we need to really be careful that we don't, we should, I think, act much like the board in that when we're emailing back and forth, we do need to be aware that everything we're discussing has to be discussed in public. We really can't be doing anything behind closed doors. So with that, we still have an amendment to the original amendment. And I believe, did we get a second on that?
Yes,
Who seconded it?
I did.
Thomas.
Okay, Thomas, that's right. Okay. Do we have any more discussion on this? On the amendment? Anything from the public? Okay.
Yes. Oh, I just wanted to ask, my name's Russ Zick, and I live 2 miles outside of town, and I get water from Paonia, from the Paonia water system. Anyway, I just wanted to ask if item 3, data collection, would that include some sort of analysis of the load that you've got, you know, the water, the demand for water? Is that included in your data collection line item?
Anything from the engineers on that?
Basically these topics are extremely broad. Russ, how you doing, by the way? Yes, I would say that data collection does include raw water. And the reason that it was left so broad is because there were so many disparate topics that touched on data collection. So short answer, yes. Although technically we are discussing right now Phil's motion to move the study of operations to number 4, or insert, I guess, at number 4.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Thanks.
Thank you. So let's go ahead, take this to a vote. The amendment again to the original amendment is to put the operations of the water system, operation study for the water systems on the list, and at number 4. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, that motion passes. That means the original motion is to issue a list of priorities to the board that coincides with the votes received, to include the analysis of the water systems. Do we have any comment on that from either the committee or the public? Any further comment, I should say? So I'm not seeing any hands from the board or the public, or the committee or the public. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No, that motion passes. Okay, so I don't know what you guys want to do as far as time. Do you want to discuss any of these? I mean, we do have room for discussion of these individual items at this point. Again, the board could completely change these, or eliminate or reprioritize, but does anybody want to discuss any of them in particular?
Yeah, I have one. I'm sorry. I have one question, and that has to do with the dealing with the outside water companies. I've talked to about a half a dozen of the ORCs that are taking care of these small companies, and I think a letter I wrote to all you saw that we really have 3 different strategies or stratums on the outside. You know, we have about 9 public water companies that purchase water from the town. We have 18 companies that are small and below public water company rules. And we have 2 interesting companies. Bone Mesa is actually a special district, and it doesn't really qualify other than purchasing water from the town. Stewart Mesa is a very large purchase system. So the question, and I talked to some old timers, and this issue of absorbing these small water companies that do not reside within the town limits has opened up a legal question of whether if we purchase and provide them water and we bring them into the water company, do we in fact have to provide them with sewer services and other town services? So I would like to ask Corinne to ask Bo, I don't know him personally. The first question for absorbing outside companies is, can we do it? And I have a feeling there's some issues in there about annexation. I mean, it's a can of worms, but before we start even talking about those people, we need to know the answer to that. Maybe Travis has.
I have actually talked with the state on absorbing the water companies. The only stipulation that the water companies or the state had is the paperwork end of it, where we would have to go in and absorb them and then possibly make some more TC sample sites or lead and copper sites that would have to be absorbed into the town's CCI number.
So, see, one of the issues is that I think has been explored in the fact about whether the town of Paonia should actually be in some kind of a special water district. As Mr. Ziff, the gentleman, or Ziff, sorry, talked earlier, the town lives in an ecosystem of water. We not only support town people, but we support lots of people through water sales. We have 29 different entities that we sell water to. And one of the questions is whether we should consider at some point being a special district. Now that's another can of worms, but it does allow you access to some financing, because money's been a big problem of these problems that we've known about for a long time. So I guess that would go up to the planning and growth piece about whether we should continue to function in our current water world format. Possibly we should be a special district. The other issue that a lot of the small companies have, and I think Thomas wrote about it, the lady from the Bessemer district, the small companies really are pretty happy where they are. They just don't like to have to hire ORCs and do lead and coppers. And I think we can get into this later, but I think there's some avenues for the town to possibly absorb these companies and provide services without actually bringing them into the water system. Because a lot of these small companies have kind of rickety systems. And the question is whether you want to absorb a company that is going to have 9 major leaks next week. You know, I mean, it's an issue.
Right, but the way that Corinne and I were talking before the board was established is these small water companies, we would absorb them. That there would be a small expense. I mean, they would have to upgrade their meters,
Right.
and then they would be responsible for a year, is how we were discussing it prior. They would be responsible for any maintenance of that line for a year, just like any new subdivision or new development. And after that year was up, then we would absorb them.
I think these are all things we could discuss, probably not tonight, but maybe in the plan and growth session. So thank you.
Thomas?
Yeah, on that topic, that might be a good strategy for kind of a spectrum of how we can manage absorbing. I don't know if that's a really good term for it, but bringing in the outside water companies. I'm personally going to try and stay out of that conversation as much as possible because I'm an in-town user. I don't have a water company. I don't, this is Phil and Mike's purview, but it makes sense to me to maybe provide the services that these companies have to purchase from town. If town could offer that as a service, as kind of a way to roll in, say, okay, well, we can offer to do this testing for you. And then, if it makes sense in the future to actually dissolve the company, absorb it into town, cognitively, it just makes sense to me. I would like to, because it was a matter of discussion at a previous board meeting and a couple of emails, bring up the topic of data collection. My interest in a lot of this, actually, most of my interest in this committee and serving on this committee is on the demand side of how water is used rather than provided. I'm happy to work with, however the board or the committee sees fit. I'm happy to work on whatever topics, but my interest and passion is more on the demand side of how we use our water and what we pay for it, rather than where it comes from or how much there might be in the future. I think that making use of what we have available makes a lot of sense. And I think that the largest part of that we're going to come up to immediately falls under data collection. And I don't think it's appropriate at this time to make any motions, but I would like to just notify the committee and the public that I would like to get historic meter data from as many data points as we can. And I had a brief discussion with Mayor Backren about this, and I want to make it 100% clear that I'm not looking to find out what any individual or any address has paid or has used. I would like to have anonymized data that is associated with, say, a unique ID that is not tied to any person or address, so that we can say, okay, this meter has had historic reads over, say, 5 years, and in summer we get spikes, and in winter we get dips. And I would like to basically analyze the shape of that data so that we can make smarter decisions about how we use water, how we price it, and possibly about how we grow the system to accommodate use in the future. So that is part of the data collection item, which we're talking about right now, is number 3 on our list of priorities. And I just wanted to bring that up as a topic of discussion and to notify everybody that it's a point of interest to me, and I have no interest in finding out what any individual has paid, because I think that there's maybe been some misunderstanding about it.
Well, I have 2 comments. Our friends on the Front Range at Denver Public Water, and particularly Aurora Public Water, they're probably, I hate to say this, but they're probably 2 of the better managed water companies in Colorado. And I've found both those people, if you approach their engineering department, they have an enormous amount of assets over there. They've been measuring how much water people use for 50 years. And they are very willing to help out us little guys that need some ideas on rate structure. There's been a lot of interest in xeriscaping. I mean, we're entering into a period that the public is not going to like because it's a demand management, but it's going to be an essential piece of how we manage our water asset in the future. So we can talk about this later, but there's a lot of resources out there that in terms of data collection that are outside of the data that we have in Paonia.
Yeah, I'd be happy to
Sure.
reach out to those guys. If you could put me in contact with them, Phil, that'd be excellent.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of hearing too that maybe at some point we need to meet with Corinne and maybe even Bo. I don't know how much time we want to take a Bo's, but and figure out exactly what we can and can't do without the permission of the board. Can we be contacting Denver or Littleton? Just little things like that. I think we need to find out maybe before the next meeting, which is something I'd be happy to work on. If nobody has a problem with that. And I do want to just hop back real fast to out-of-town water companies, and that is maybe not right away, but at some point in the near future, I would love to have some kind of a forum, maybe even have somebody, a professional, run it to just have a discussion between the town, us, perhaps some staff, Corinne, Travis, and the out-of-town water companies, and see what they want. I don't think we really know what all of the water companies want. Maybe even talk to them somehow on get information from them on an individual basis. I don't know how daunting of a task that would be, but I personally really want to hear what those water companies are thinking, what their needs are, what they have to say. I have talked to a couple of people up on the Mesa, and they really want to be heard. So I would make that a priority of mine to hear what they have to say, to start a dialogue.
Just a comment on that. I'm an ORC for the German Creek group. The other set, Bill Habernecht, is the ORC for 6. Travis is ORC for Hidden Valley, right? And then there's another lady. So these are all the public water companies, and they're the ones that have been impacted the worst. The little people up on Lambourne that have 1 and 2 taps, I think the town could absorb those in a heartbeat without, and they'd love it. The real problem are these public water companies that have been declared so. And there's a couple of strategies. One is to leave them how they are. The town, what they want is some relief from the regulatory burden. And so there's 2 strategies. One, the town could absorb them, as Travis said, and we could put them in our lead and copper testing, which will be big, and some other stuff. Or the town they could stay alone as independent companies, and the town could provide them with the ORC services, the lead and copper testing, and the town could actually maybe make a revenue generator out of that of some sort to provide these people. That's really what they want. They want to be out from under the regulatory burden. And for the rest of it, honestly, they don't care as long as they can buy water from the town. And then the town could also possibly provide some infrastructure services, leak protection. So there's a lot of different strategies in there that you could either bring them in or leave them out and help them provide services, because we want to be a good community here. So anyway, that's subject for some discussion.
Some excellent points there. Thank you, Philip. Any
Tim,
other discussion? Yes.
I'd like to, we're about an hour in, or over an hour into our meeting now. I don't know how long, I know we don't have a schedule, but I feel like we can probably move. I don't know if we have anything else. Let me check the agenda. Hang on a second.
The last item on the agenda is, are there any additional comments from the committee or the public on anything else? No, we don't want to start a discussion, just looking for comments.
Tammy, I got one.
Okay, Mike.
The Stewart Mesa Water Company is the first out-of-town water company that the town of Paonia ever worked with. And that actually started in 1906. And the reason that it started was because the town and Stewart Mesa Water Company was fighting over who owned what parts of what springs. And somebody finally came up with the idea, well, the town can take over the springs as long as you give me a contract that says you're going to give me water forever, and more or less, and that's how it ended. But I'm also on the board of Stewart Mesa Water Company, and I can say when we've talked about, as a board, talked about the town of Paonia taking over Stewart Water Company and it then be part of their water system, at least the board said, as long as we turn the faucet and the water comes on, that's great. So it's going to take a lot of discussions to get through that, but that's my comment, at least from the Stewart Mesa Water Company stance.
Okay, thank you. And member of the public ending in 8484.
Hi, thank you, Tammy. I unfortunately missed the first half of the meeting, and I was just wondering if this could just be posted as soon as possible. That would just be so helpful. Thank you so much.
And Corinne did post that on the website late last week, I believe. You just look at the calendar, click on the date of the calendar, and the information is there. The basic information is there. So yeah, we'll try and get that up a little bit earlier if we can.
I'm sorry, Tammy. I mean the recording of this whole meeting, if that could be posted.
Oh, thanks for clarification. Corinne, is that possible?
I am recording it. I will get it on the YouTube channel.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Christina. I'm assuming we want to meet the same time, the same date, or the same fourth Wednesday. Do we want to meet at 5 since there will be no tree board? Do we want to meet at 6? What time would you like to meet? What works for everybody? Corinne and Travis included. what works for everybody.
Tammy, you still have a hand up.
No, I just clicked on it and I didn't see it. Oh, Jake, Jake, I was going to say, do you have anything to say? So, Jake.
Yeah, this is Jake with the Western Slope Conservation Center. Right, there we go, lower the hand. Yeah, I just want to say thanks for all of you for volunteering for this committee. This is really important, as Suzanne said earlier. And also that if any of you are interested in resources or any ways the Conservation Center can help you out, maybe some of our connections. We've done a lot of water conservation stuff over the years in the area. So just wanted to put that out here publicly that we're happy to help and connect wherever that makes sense. So thank you all.
I have a question for Jake. Are you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, one of the things that's going to come out of our raw water analysis is that we're probably going to need an environmental basin analysis, of all of our spring entities up there. Do you guys fund natural resource studies that you look at environmental impact, spring development? Is that something that you might have a grant for in the future?
I would say that we at the Conservation Center don't fund that necessarily, but we could be the entity to help get grants. Yeah, I would think there's a number of resources out there and programs to try to tap. Be happy to help out to connect.
One other question. I dealt with you guys a lot. NRCS was really big into GIS and they were funding some mapping projects provided we gave you the data. Are you still interested? Is there any funding available for mapping projects that define water and water assets?
Yeah, we'd be interested in that. We do have some GIS data on our website, but yeah, I'm curious what that NRCS, which you're referring to there.
Oh, I think it was a project I got for my little farm, but we won't go there.
Yeah,
right.
no,
well, I'll get a hold of you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jake. Greatly appreciated. So glad you're here. Corinne or Travis, do you have anything else?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. One thing I would like to say before we adjourn, there's an interesting story that just came out on KVNF about the town of Uray. They had some contamination in the system of surface water to their groundwater. So that's going to be an interesting story to follow.
One other question. I read today there's going to be a rather large article coming out in the Independent tomorrow, I think, on the lead and copper issue. Are you aware of that?
It's in the paper today.
Oh,
it's on the page of the North Fork second.
So, well, there's been some confusion about the town's response. I do a lot of lead and copper testing. I was curious what's next in terms of the response to that violation.
Sampling. Go ahead, Travis.
I have got bottles ordered to do the all the other testing that's involved. I actually also got my first biannual testing bottles ordered. I should have everything by the end of this week to do all of the parameters. There is alkalinity testing and a lot of other testing involved with all of those.
Sure. One question was, the town made mention of hybrid testing, which is my experience is that most lead testing has to be done inside the home. Is that something that we need to worry about?
When you are doing lead and copper samples, yes, you're supposed to take them from inside the house. But with COVID-19, I had permission to take them as long as they were on their service line. You could take them outside the house.
Awesome. That's great. That's perfect. We need to put that out. Well, thanks. Yeah.
You get more tomorrow, my boy. We're gonna go to bed.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I adjourn this meeting.
Thank you all.
Thomas?
Sorry, yeah, are we set for the next meeting for March the 24th at 6? You mentioned you might want to change the time or day.
Is 5 better? 6? 6 works great for me. Everybody's
it doesn't matter. It occurred to me after we scheduled the last one that you have town meetings, you know, Tammy, as a board member on Tuesday, and then this on Wednesday. Would it be better for you to break it, like, you know, break your week up? Is it better for you to have everything close together, or like, does it? Okay, doesn't matter.
It really.
All right.
I do think for Travis, earlier is better than later. If you do it earlier in the day, at 5 o'clock would work better, but the
Fine with
day is
me.
fine.
Okay,
Gonna move to 5.
Mike, okay with 5? Yeah, he's nodding. Okay, 5 it is. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right,
All right,
you
Good
all.
night.
all right,
Take
yeah,
care.
have a good night.